Hi everyone. So today we have the published author Rajesh Talwar with us. He has written over 40 books, which I found out in my research. And when I read about this, that you've written these many books, I was already, in awe of you. You've written so many books already, and I really wanted to know. So before we start discussing The Killings in November, a play on toxic terror, the first question is, how do you do it? What is the creative genius's secret to write so many books in such a short time?
Well, I think, working across different genres helps because somebody told me that we have a left side of the brain and we have a right side of the brain. And when you do rational activities, like working on a non-fiction book, which is less imaginative, then the right side of your brain is used and the left side is resting. And then when you do purely imaginative work, the left side is working. I'm not sure about this left side business and right side business, but when I was working for the UN, I found that I could not work on my fiction during the working week because to work on fiction, you have to completely go into a different zone. And that I could work on only over the weekend. But for non-fiction, I could, before the working day began, before office hours commenced, I could start 1 hour before. And once the office was over, I could switch quite easily to whatever non-fiction I was writing. So I think just this kind of planning probably helped. It also helped, I think, that none of my books was hugely successful because I write, in fact, in one of my books about how success can disorient writers. You see, Arundhati Roy, she wrote one novel and then it took her 2 decades to write the second novel. Maybe if it had not been such a great success, she could have written another novel sooner. But writers become over self-conscious if any of their books becomes too successful. So although my books have been successful, there have been a couple of bestsellers within the Indian bestseller numbers. None of them has been a global success. So maybe that is one advantage that helps you to write more because you're not conscious. You're just writing because you enjoy the process.
Quite an interesting take on success, first of all, because mostly people want to achieve that and you are happy with the prolonged period of it. I mean, you're not so eager for success, but you let it happen gradually. But
yes, I think so. If you know Akhila, for example, if you take somebody like Harper Lee wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, which was a huge success. And it was such a big success in the US that it was like a book for the rest of her life. She didn't write anything else notable after that. She wrote something else, but that was really a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, many outsiders might envy Harper Lee and say, wow, what a success. But for the writer, it's also immensely satisfying to have the creative juices flowing. So I sometimes think that she must have been very deeply troubled also because when the juices freeze, it's like if you take away the painting from M.F. Hussain, who was painting till his last day, then he can't really be happy even if he has a lot of money.
that is true. I think that is valid for every creative genius because they don't do it for the money, they don't do it for the fame, they actually do it for the satisfaction of their artistic genius. I guess that would be the right way to put it. But when we talk about artistic genius, how do you come up with ideas to write? I mean, I did do some checking. You've written fiction, non-fiction, you've even written drama. And drama is like very rare in these days to be written. So, what are the inspirations for your writing, and how do you get the ideas to write?
Well, speaking of this book, for a long time, I, like many other people in the NCR, we've been troubled by air pollution. And it was in my mind for a long time that there should be some kind of a fictional creation on air pollution. And I've seen many books where non-humans have been humanized to tell a story. I mean, the best example is that of Pinocchio, which has a wooden puppet which is humanized in the story. But you also have, say, Animal Farm by George Orwell, where the pigs are like human beings. So there are many instances like that. And one of the things I was thinking of to humanize the two atomic bombs that landed on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So that would have meant that the bombs are talking to each other about what is going to happen. It was an ambitious project, but then there was the more, relevant project of trying to humanize air pollution itself, to make it out to be a kind of monster, which it is. And just because it's slow murder, that people don't die in the same way like you're knifed to death, it is not any the less serious in terms of at least the number of people it kills every year. So that was the background. I mean, the story was just facing me every November as the years passed. And I personally suffer from breathlessness. I saw that Mr. Tharoor, Shashi Tharoor, he even carries a mobile gadget, which is like I have something in the room, which is like an air purifier. So he carries one air purifier, which is mobile. I'm not so high-tech, but if I had some gadget like that, maybe I would use it also. But air pollution is such a terrible thing. And, it's so sad because on the one hand, we are landing on the moon. Chandrayaan is landing. We are celebrating our achievements. I also want to celebrate our achievements. Most of the time I do that. But it's so sad that on the one hand, we are making such great strides. On the other hand, we cannot solve this problem of air pollution in our cities just because of lack of determination and will. So this was the background to writing The Killing the November.
Pretty interesting, because when I came across the title, Killings in November, I was really wondering why this November? I mean, killing happen at any point of time. But as I read through, I could make out, okay, why this November? And really, November is like it's supposed to be a good month for us because the weather is changing. But it actually has turned out to be a bad one because of all of these issues. You've written it in the drama form. So, if we were to, think about it and write it in the fiction form, would you do that? Or is the drama form the best suited for this?
Well, this is interesting. I think the dramatic form has more immediacy to it as compared to the novel. So that is an advantage. But the novel has a much wider audience. So that is the advantage of the novel. But I thought this would actually work very well on the stage. And actually it would work even better as a kind of animation series. So, for example, I think we are all admirers of The Simpsons, which are fantastic creations. So I thought that something like The Simpsons would work very well with the characters in this play. And then it could have even a wider reach than India, because air pollution is a global issue. But I had a feeling the dramatic form or the drama form would work better. But of course, commercially, the novel would have been more interesting, but I don't want to be swayed too much by commercial interests.
And I guess the drama form has its own beauty, to say.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I have been a follower of theatre, I've read Shakespeare, and I've watched a few plays also that have been performed. And it's always a treat to the eyes just to see how much there is to say when it is drama. It's not being written so much these days. I don't know why, not the preference of writers, but yes, definitely it has a different kind of impact. Talking about
Yes,
the
yes.
characters, you were saying something?
Well, there's this famous American novelist, Henry James. He started off in the drama field. So for 10 years, he wrote scripts for Broadway, but none of his plays got staged. Then somebody said, why don't you write a novel? So he wrote a novel, The Turn of the Screw. It became a big success. So then he wrote 2-3 other novels. He became a huge success. He was a literary sensation. But his dramas were not read. They were not performed. But in an interview, he said, I'm looking into the future, and 100 years from now, I predict that people will read dramas much more than they do today. So the dramatic form had the advantage for today's generation who have less time to pick up suitable boy, a thick volume like that. Whereas the Killings in November, they can probably just read it an hour. So, but you were saying something.
And I think according to today's new format of audiobook also, drama is a very suited form for that, because actually there can be an enactment in the audio form which was not existing earlier. So when we talk about the characters, firstly, how did you come up with Sherlock Holmes? That is the first question.
Okay. Well, I wanted it to be a bit satirical. So using Sherlock Holmes would have not been fair to the original. But I wanted a bit of a satire, and Sherlock Holmes worked well. But I didn't want it to be only a Western-driven narrative, that there's a Western detective. So there was actually a Colonel Ranjit series, which was very popular. It used to come out in Hindi, I think in the 70s. So it used to sell at railway stations, and then somehow nobody reads Colonel Ranjit anymore. But Colonel Ranjit was also a kind of detective. It was stuff coming out in the vernacular press, which was very popular. So I thought, well, why don't we have both these guys team up and try to catch the killer?
Yeah, even I did not know about this Colonel Ranjit. I mean, it's the Indian version of Sherlock Holmes, but great. I'll try to find out if I can get hold of his comics also, because detective and mystery work is kind of more of my interest these days. So at the same time, apart from Sherlock Holmes, you've had pretty interesting names of the characters. I could not help but notice you've named Bow Tie, Brown Coat, Fat Man, Marxist Beard, Gandhi Cap, Yellow Tie. So what is with the naming? Did you want to make a representation of many characters through one, or what was the objective behind these kinds of names?
Well, there's all these different vested interests who all say that, the evolution is not because of us. So, for example, and there is a conflict which is shown in the play between the leftists who don't want the industries to close down because they are representing the workers, and the environmentalists or the green shirts. So for the environmentalists, instead of using a name, I thought it would be easier for the reader to just read green shirt and understand that this is an environmentalist. And the same way, to understand who is a communist, instead of giving him a name, just use Marxist beard. So Yellow Tie, I think, is people who are selling fuel. And the color of fuel is mostly a brownish yellow. So I thought this would be more visually, it was a kind of device to make characters more easy to remember. so that they don't have to keep on looking up to the list of characters. And, it's a kind of shorthand, trying to help the reader to remember.
It actually was, because when I came across bow tie, I could not help but just think of bow tie. And then brown coat, only brown coat. Some person who was wearing a brown coat. That person did not have a face, but just a brown coat. That was very easily identifiable. So that's pretty amazing. I would say it's a craft that you have deployed in this to capture the minds of the readers. Pretty well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So what message would you want to give through the play to the readers?
Well, the message is multiple. Firstly, it is, that we need to look at things holistically. For example, there are these farmers talking in Punjab, and one of them says, we don't get any help from the government. Why should we stop burning this crop residue? But one of the farmers, his son is suffering in Delhi. So this shows the interrelatedness of things. And it suggests that we should understand the farmer's point of view also, that the government should try to come to their assistance to make it easier for them to get rid of their crop residue, possibly even give them some money. This can be done. The crop residue can be used, but also the farmers should be sensitive to the fact that when they burn this, the smoke is going to other cities. So it's a kind of mutual consideration. And also that there is no one villain. It is just because it's like that story about, I think it was Akbar, that he asked everybody to bring a bucket and fill up a tank. And everybody thinks, well, my one big bucket will not make a difference. And the next day the tank is empty. So many people are contributing to this terrible air pollution. It's the crop residue burning, it's the dust, it's the cars, and it's the factories. We are all responsible, and we are killing ourselves and the future generation. There's a scene where a judge, he laments that even if you stay in the Lutyens Delhi, in the most luxurious part of Delhi, your kids cannot escape the air pollution. So we are supposed to be a global leader, and we are a global leader. Why can't we get our act together? Some people say that, we are not rich enough. China could solve its problems because they had more money. But it's not really a question only of money. It's a question of, and we achieved Chandrayaan on a budget which was less than what it cost to make a Hollywood movie on landing on the moon. So we should have the capability of doing more with less. Unfortunately, when the play was staged by Delhi University students, it didn't get enough publicity. And even in this play format, I'm not sure how much publicity it will get. But which is why I think that an animation film would really rock the situation. So that is partly the message, but I didn't want to write it in a messagey way because messagey stories are very boring. And the killer resembles air pollution in some ways. So there are hints thrown in. For example, he wears a grey suit, and grey is the color of the smoke in our city. At the same time, he wears a red tie, so he's not a very sober character. And there is an element of the maniac in him. So his character, humanizing air pollution, I have taken some features from air pollution. There is a discussion between the detectives, and they say, he has some mysterious occult powers that he looks at a bird and the bird drops from the sky. And this is actually happening. Every year, birds just drop dead because their lungs are overpowered with with the smog, and their lungs are probably more fragile than even our lungs, and so they just drop dead. So that is really the power of this villain.
That is true, and it actually is happening that the bird population has, very quickly declined, and even during COVID time, the sparrow was one bird that was spotted after I don't know how many years, and even now it's very, very rare to spot that one bird at least. As kids, when we begin learning, sparrow is the first bird we learn about, and that bird is not really found anywhere. So it is true. So, but this the problem of pollution, the killings in November, this is like a collective impact of a lot of things. If as a third party observer, you were to suggest something, if this may be that the solution, what would it be according to you?
Well, I think there are many different kinds of solutions, many ways to improve the situation. For example, we have if you drive through Delhi, you get information that so and so road is clogged up. So people take another route. That is good, but we don't have any information about which route is less harmful for your lungs. So, because the shorter route may also be a more polluted route. So why don't we have something which is telling us about the green route? This is the greenest route you can take from Jampura to Holakwa. And this can also be at a national level, that if you're traveling to Chandigarh, pollution levels are really high at this time, train is better. So if you introduce something like this will shock the government, even if it's a private initiative. It will shock the government, it will create more awareness that, okay, this is really an important issue. I remember there was some magazine some years ago, which used to carry out a very interesting thing at the end of the magazine, Femina, which would say a kick in the rear to ABC, people who have, made some comments about women which are not very nice. And then a kiss in the cheek to ABC, people who've said some nice things, some good things, some gender-sensitive things. So we don't have enough shaming of the polluters, naming and shaming of the polluters. I think the media needs to name them, to shame them. In March this year, there was a report that so many states have not even used the money which was allocated to them to handle air pollution. So on the one hand, we are complaining we don't have enough money, but when you get the money, you don't use it. What can be more shameful than that? So now those people, those states, there's an environment minister, he needs to be named and shamed because politicians, they hate bad publicity. And then I think if somebody in this huge country of ours, if in a town, in a city, somebody really tackles this population at a state level, that politician is really going to rise in estimation. So I think naming and shaming, suggesting green routes, determination, like we had Mr. Gadkari who did a lot from the roads, although bridges have been collapsing, but he really did a lot of work for the roads. So we need a politician with great determination and central backing, and not to have this, center blaming state, state blaming center, and then finally nothing gets done. So that is really, so we need regular audits. I believe, in fact, that the crop waste has not been tackled this year, although it can be tackled. Industry needs to step forward. Why is private industry not stepping forward? I once spoke to a very big chappal manufacturer, and I said, Mr. XYZ, he didn't want to be quoted. he was asking me for ideas. He said, "You've been with the UN for so long. Can you give me some ideas about my chappal business?" I said, "You're one of the biggest chappal manufacturers in the country. Why don't you use the waste of the Ganga to make chappals? Because Nike and Reebok, they're already doing it with the ocean pollution. And they boast every year on their Instagram, on their Facebook, that we cleared up so many tons of pollution from the oceans and we've converted it into shoes." So I said, do that with the Ganga, clean the Ganga. He was very thoughtful, and then he said, there are problems. For one, people will accuse me that you are making chappals from the Ganga. I said, you're cleaning the Ganga. That is a great thing you are doing. He said, it's the politicians will get after me. So these kind of hesitations, I think even the Ganga project hasn't made much headway. So our rivers are polluted, our air is polluted. We are not making sufficient headway on our infrastructure also. Okay, the roads have done well, but you had this terrible incident of the civil service candidates who drowned to death. You had one of the roofs of the terminal which collapsed. So governance. We are really among the most intelligent people in the world. Indians are doing so well overseas, but we need to get our domestic act okay. So
Very well, you summed up this practically everything that could be there. But one thing that was there in my mind also, because November is the time when we have Diwali, and it is followed, no matter how much bans we impose or whatever we do, crackers are going to be burned.
sure.
The religious sentiment comes into the picture, and that is not something anyone would want to get their heads wrapped around. Right. How can we make people understand the Diwali can be celebrated without cracker burning also? Because no one is going to listen. Forget about kids, even elders don't listen to that. How do we make them understand this? That is also causing the killings in November.
I think this will also be controversial, like the cleaning Ganga thing. But I think there would be no harm to organize prayers to Ma Lakshmi around this time and say, Ma Lakshmi, we know you will not come to our city because Durga, Lakshmi, they all want a very clean place. People clean up their houses because Lakshmi will not come unless you clean up your house. But then how will Lakshmi come to your city if you don't clean up your city? So if we want to invite Lakshmi, we want to invite Durga, let us clean up our cities. Only then will these goddesses come. Only then can our prayers really... or you can have prayers to Lakshmi, although this may not work, but to kill this asur, this demon called Pradushan, who is probably, Durga is famous for having killed the buffalo demon, who was one of the most powerful demons, and she killed many other asuras and rakshas. But this asur, no state government seems to handle it. The demon Pradushan, no central government can handle it. So maybe we only need to seek their blessings, that they should do something. So maybe prayers to them will shame the powers that be. I don't know.
That's actually a very intelligent way to direct people's devotion. And I think it's right. Scientifically, practically, in religious context, it is very accurate and very right. So moving ahead, you've already written 40 books, fiction, non-fiction, drama. Some subjects are even related to the present generation. I found out about that. How about your future plans? You still plan to write, or do you plan to become a full-time writer? What are your plans for the future?
Well, I have a few writing projects. coming up, and one of them is on the sacred feminine. So I think all religions have much to learn from each other, but so Hinduism can learn from other religions. So not to say that Hinduism is the best religion, but there is one thing which I think other religions can learn from Hinduism, and that is the greater respect that is there within the religion for the sacred feminine. So you just mentioned Durga Mata, Lakshmi, Puja. We have so many goddesses, but the other religions are all very masculine oriented. So God also is a male; he cannot be female. And in Christianity, of course, you have Jesus, but you don't have Jessica, which would be his daughter, God's daughter, if there was one. In Islam, you have Allah, who is basically masculine, and then you have the Prophet Muhammad, but you don't have important. So people, when they talk about gender sensitivity, so this is an interesting project. It will be not easy to write, but I think a book emphasizing the importance of the sacred feminine. I sometimes think that we are having all these wars in the world also because the sacred feminine is not given sufficient respect, because the feminine is more caring, more nurturing, more conciliatory. So that is one project. I've been a film watcher for many years. So there's a book on the Bollywood, Hollywood, and the future of world cinema that I'm looking at. And then I'm also very fond of detective fiction. So we have some attempts made at writing children's detective fiction, but I don't think any of them has been really successful. So maybe a children's detective fiction, something like that. So those are 2 or 3 of the upcoming projects.
I have to say it's pretty interesting, and definitely your creative juices are in flow in different directions and getting out so many good things. And as far as my understanding of children's literature goes, I don't think there has any detective fiction been written for them, apart from some.
Yes. I don't think so.
There is any. I mean, I don't know. In my knowledge, there is none. There might be, I don't know. But this is very good. In fact, today children are not so much into reading. They are more into their mobile phones. So I think this will be a very good way to initiate them to start reading.
Right.
And I guess it will be easier for parents also to develop that habit of reading. So
absolutely.
I did check. All of your books are also available on Amazon, I believe, and all of them have a fair amount of reviews also for the readers to understand what is covered in which one. So based on that, I wish you the best for your upcoming venture. I hope that I get to interview you again for the next coming book. And
very soon, hopefully.
Keep writing and keep enlightening us and keep sharing your vision with us.
Thank you very much, Akila.
Thank you.
Lovely to speak with you.
Same with you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Sure.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.